Now, of course, Israel Adesanya took on Marvin Vettori in the main event on Saturday night and gave us a very dominant performance, a champion's performance, one that, going into the site, there's questions, not of his legitimacy as a middleweight champion or as a fighter, but after the loss to Jan Blachowicz, there was a question of, had there been a blueprint set out to beat Israel Adesanya? Had there been, had the champion who was undefeated lost his shine, you could say, but he certainly added stock to his middleweight title defence with a perfect performance on Saturday night, which at moments got a little bit sketchy, especially if you're an Israel Adesanya fan. There was times where, personally, I was on the edge of my seat, especially when Marvin Vettori had wrapped those hooks up and was going for that rear naked choke, although it only lasted 20-30 seconds before Adesanya got out of it, and he was impressed with Adesanya on Saturday night in terms of once the fight got to the floor, he was out and back on his feet very quickly. At one point he pushed off the fence, using his environment around him to get out of positions, and he was phenomenal in the night. His head movement was phenomenal. His the leg kicks were devastating. They really started chopping the trees down, and the foundation from Vettori, from which he probably would have used a lot more. The wrestling, going off that lead foot, using the power to engage with Adesanya in the grappling and the clinching. And it felt like for Vettori, it did feel like a performance from someone who was making their first pay-per-view headline. It felt like he was a little bit flat-footed, a little bit not lost in the headlights, but didn't know what to do. It looked like maybe the environment just got a little bit too much for him. Of course, he'd main evented in the Apex, but I don't believe he'd main evented outside that. At least he's not main evented on a card of that magnitude with so much on the line. But it was a solid performance from him. No real stock loss from him. Of course, coming into this, it beat Hermansson and Kevin Holland, who was 6th and 10th respectively. So he can get back into this position, and maybe not while Adesanya's champion. It looks like obviously Adesanya's going to be facing Whittaker next. Whether that's going to happen in October, November, could happen at MSG if New York's open at that point. I know they want to do it in Auckland, maybe on Fight Island. Adesanya was talking about, but there was no love lost to Marvin Vettori, no respect lost to Marvin Vettori. It just wasn't his night. It was the night for Adesanya to show just how special of an athlete he is, especially in the 185-pound division. Yes, he tried to go up to 205, didn't work out for him. And I think that, again, there was a question about, was it just a size differential? Was it a weakness of Israel Adesanya? He showed on Saturday night that it wasn't a weakness of his. We've got Adesanya defeating Marvin Vettori, 122 strikes to 208. 91 out of 211 there for Vettori, 96 out of 181, and 58 out of 176, and of course 4 out of 14 successful takedowns. So as you see there, 10 successfully defended there by Adesanya, and it does show, that it does show how different it is between 205 and 185, and the difference between the two powers, I guess, or the two strengths you can say between 185 and 205. Because I'd imagine, had this fight taken place upper division, it could have been a little bit different for the two. Obviously, both came in under that 185-pound limit on the night. But yeah, it did show that 185 is Adesanya's kingdom, and he deserves to be there at the very top. Obviously, again, it's with all due respect, it's a little bit crazy that it was Kelvin Gastelum that gave him his toughest fight. But again, I think that was his first time main event, and it was his biggest moment, Adesanya that is, and it was the night in which he really put himself at the top of that division. Since then, it's been not a completely easy ride, but he's come off unfazed and unhurt from the majority of his fights, really. Obviously, he only went the distance with Yoel Romero, which again wasn't the greatest fight, but again, it takes two to tango, and Romero didn't really bring the fight to him, and he didn't have to. And as a champion, it isn't the champion's job to go out and take the fight and get a finish. He just has to defend what's his. So yes, he did the same on Saturday night, defended what is his, and he called out Robert Whittaker. It was a perfect display from him. Again, we spoke on the preview on Saturday night, the three stanzas of the fight, the build-up and the walking in, the fight itself and walking out. And he did everything perfectly to a T. He walked in with this mask, and you're thinking, we've seen it with Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder in the rematch, the backlash, and we've seen it before with Adesanya, with the dancing, the extravagant walkouts, which personally I love, but with that comes a pressure of winning. Because if you lose that, you become a meme on social media now. You just go, you just focus too much on the intro or whatever. But, he came in, perfect, got the job done, and he called out Robert Whittaker immediately. And as a champion, you don't have to call anyone out. You can just say, job's done, I'm waiting for the next contender. But Adesanya likes to fight. He was supposed to probably fight Robert Whittaker before Vettori in this, in a perfect world, but obviously Robert Whittaker wanted a little bit more time. He's going to get a bit more time now. And it seems like Adesanya didn't, take any damage, so that fight should be able to be made October, November-ish. And we can see those two go at it. Once again, it's just a question of the where rather than when and if. So yes, for Vettori, he called out Paulo Costa. I do like that fight. I think Paulo Costa's a good shout out. And to have a look at the rankings, of course, Adesanya Whittaker 2 is going to be made. Paulo Costa Vettori makes sense because they're second and third. Both coming off the losses now to the champ. Jared Cannonier could be a good shout. Obviously got Darren Till versus Derek Brunson. Now Till beats Brunson. You could probably say he jumps to cure the likes of Paulo Costa and Marvin Vettori for a next title shot, just because it's a fresh matchup for Adesanya. Only Jared Cannonier now. Actually, sorry, Jared Cannonier is the only one in the top 5. But obviously you've got Cannonier, Hermansson, and Till, and Hall as well, who's yet to face the champion, and Edmund Shabazian, but he's 3-4 fights away from that. He's still only, 21, 22, so he's still very young, got a lot to do. So you're looking at really Darren Till, Cannonier as the next fresh matchups for Adesanya, you could say. But yeah, the Marvin Vettori fight against Paulo Costa would be sound. Both of them are very good, good strikers. Vettori's got great wrestling, and it'd be a good matchup. It'd be a good build-up to a fight as well. Obviously, Paulo Costa was supposed to be fighting Cannonier, but has pulled out. Kelvin Gastelum's going to take that spot up. Of course, maybe you get Kelvin Gastelum Adesanya 2 down the line too. That fight was, I believe, fight of the year, wasn't it, in 2019? So it'd be interesting to see how they run it back and how the two have grown since that fight, because that was a very close fight, and you got to feel sorry for Kelvin Gastelum. He never really got that shot at Robert Whittaker. Well, saying that he did a couple of weeks ago, but with the title on the line that you're supposed to, back at UFC 236, of course.